One of the most controversial decisions that a writer and company can make is adding existing characters to a solo hero or an already existing character's lore. I absolutely love it when new characters are introduced to already existing characters. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. My name is Aiden, and today we're going to be talking about superhero families. Going back to the early beginnings of comics, we can see that adding existing characters and giving old characters new partners is no new thing, but for whatever reason in the last couple of years, superhero families have kind of exploded in popularity, and really just the sheer amount of characters a part of each family has exploded in numbers. Now, I'm not talking about superhero teams like the Titans or the Justice League or the Avengers or the X-Men or anything like that. I'm talking about the actual families. I'm talking about the Hulk family, the Spider family, the Arrow family, the Bat family, the Flash family, the Wonder family, the Super family. All of those self-proclaimed found families and sometimes biological families. But before we get into that, be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video. You see what I mean though, right? Pretty much every big name superhero has a significant amount of characters that share a name or really just share a support system. This allows for things like huge families, crossovers, and diverse storylines that dive into different characters. The question I'm mainly wondering is, when does a family get too big? Is there a limit? Or does it simply matter whether or not you bring good stories in with these new characters? There are plenty of other things that I'll touch on in this video, like who should be accepted into each of these families and whether the uniqueness of each character will dilute other characters if there's too many of them. While it's nice to have a character who has a large support system, if there's such a large majority of characters in a single family, then it can cause for personalities to be meshed together and a lot of characters to lose certain character aspects that they originally had. And it can cause some people to attribute characters' flaws and characters' personality traits to others. For example, the Bat family is about 20 members right now, and no, that's not an exaggeration. If you count Bruce Wayne, Alfred Pennyworth, Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Tim Drake, Damian Wayne, Selina Kyle, Lucius Fox, Duke Thomas, Kate Kane, Barbara Gordon, Stephanie Brown, Cassandra Cain, Helena Bertinelli, Bet Kane, Harper Row, Harley Quinn, Clayface, Ace the Bat Hound, and then probably more, then it's just around 20. Now, before you go typing down in the comments how some of these characters are dead or some of them aren't considered a part of the Bat family anymore, they were all a part of the Bat family at one point, so they still have a significant amount of Bat family lore that can be attributed to their character. But most of those characters that I just listed aren't generally considered a part of the main Bat family, but a majority of them should be. Now, I'm not talking about Clayface or Harley Quinn, I'm talking about Lucius Fox, Duke Thomas, Stephanie Brown, sometimes Kate Kane. They aren't often seen as characters who are important to the Batman's lore and really to the Bat family mythos, and some people think that you can remove them from the Bat family without any real repercussions, really to the Bat family. But it's just wrong to say that, especially when you consider the repercussions that these characters' actions have had on the main mythos and really how important they are to Batman as a whole. Lucius was introduced in the late 70s, and he basically runs Wayne Enterprises from behind the scenes to make sure that all of their dealings are ethical in some way or another, so that Wayne Enterprises isn't contributing to the poverty in Gotham and more of the crime. And Duke Thomas is pretty much the only member of the Bat family who operates during the day. He makes sure that the evil that Batman fights for at night is continuously fought upon during the day, even though he has school and things like that. He still is able to contribute to the Bat family during the daytime. And now don't even get me started about Stephanie Brown, who is the absolute worst Robin, but she still has major contributions to the Bat family as Spoiler and as Batgirl. I mean, she's helped bring criminals to justice many times before, and she elevates a lot of the characters like Tim Drake. And she helped elevate his character with a relationship, even though they later broke up for their own goods, which is a different story for a different time. But since there are so many random characters in the Bat family, it sidelines a lot of the important characters, and it can make some characters have other character traits of the main characters, like sometimes Dick Grayson and Jason Todd and Tim Drake all swap personality traits, because nobody can really remember how each character acts, because there's so many different iterations of them, and there's so many different Robins, so many different Batgirls, so many different random characters in the Bat family. And obviously that's not a great thing to have if you want to have a clear and well-defined story. I sometimes just don't understand why they would introduce so many characters if they're just going to make a lot of these characters act the same. But someone who I interacted with on TikTok before pointed out to me that Batman taking in a lot of these characters would be a logical response for someone who has dealt with trauma of losing his only family at such a young age. And I can completely see their point, but it's just completely ridiculous to bring in characters like Clayface and Harley Quinn and start giving them time in the Bat family when you have 15 other characters that you could develop on the storylines. There are a lot of characters that have often been headcanoned as, or have really been seen as working alone, or sometimes they're so powerful that having a whole family with them seems like it's kind of pointless. Like, let's take the Flash, for example. We'll just take Wally West, because he's the main running Flash right now. Wally West is so ridiculously fast that he saved an entire city from a nuke in a fraction of a millisecond. Not to mention another feat, which was more recent, which was that he was able to sign autographs, beat criminals, save pedestrians, and do a whole other ton of stuff in seconds without his wife knowing that he was gone from their dinner, until the Speed Force started acting up and then messed everything up. But you get my point. This guy is ridiculously fast, so him getting a bunch of partners wouldn't really make much sense, especially if they all operated in the same city. But you know what's better than one character who is super speeding and super fast operating in one city? It's 15! No, I'm not kidding. Most of these characters operate in the same two cities, Keystone and Central City. You've got Jay Garrick, Barry Allen, Wally West, Max Mercury, Bart Allen, Irie West, Jesse Chambers, Ace West, Avery Ho, Don Allen, and probably more that I can't think of right now. And yes, again, I know that some of them don't always operate at the same time or in the same city. But, you know, my point still stands. Because I haven't seen many stories on Avery Ho, and that might be because they pretty much shipped her off and just ignored her character and sent her to the other side of the Earth. And I think the only reason that they did that with having her operate elsewhere was because when they introduced so many characters with the Speed Force and with super speed, they had no idea what to do with all these other characters that they had, so they just started sending them to other cities for other storylines. My point is that they should have done this. Like, yes, they should have shipped these characters off to other cities. Because of how fast they all are, there's no reason to have multiple characters super speeding around the same city. And there's so many of them that have such distinct personalities, but they get sidelined a lot in the main storyline and seem to be forgotten about the fact that they work in the same cities. I love pretty much all of these characters, so watching all of them get sidelined for new characters that we're going to introduce gets pretty annoying, especially when you could still have them in the main story without sidelining all these other characters. But with someone who's like Green Arrow, it makes sense for him to have a couple different partners because he's kind of like Batman. He doesn't have any superpowers, and that's pretty much where the similarities end. Just a man with some really good skill with the bow and arrow, but he has his limits, and having some people have his back makes sense because he's just a person, and a lot of them are just people too. But the sheer size of his family gets a little ridiculous at times, and I mean, just for example, in the most recent crossover event for Green Arrow, he had Roy Harper, Connor Hawke, Dinah Lance, Sissy King-Jones, Sienna, Leon Harper, Jade Nguyen, Emiko Queen, Mia Dearden, and Oliver Queen, obviously. But can you see my point yet? It might just be a little bit of overkill. There are so many of these characters that have similar gimmicks that just get thrown together into the same family simply because they both use a bow and arrow or something like that, even if some of these members don't have any stories together or any real relationships with one another. They all know Ollie and Dinah, so they're like their little adopted kids, and it's just odd that they're all considered a part of one big family. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love these families. I think it's a great addition because you can build on characters, you can have a lot of diverse storylines. I just sometimes wish that they were a little bit smaller than they are now, so that every character could get a decent appreciation and exploration of their characters. A lot of the examples that I used here are just from the families that I know the most about. So if you have any other similar thoughts about other families in DC or Marvel, let me know down in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching. Okay, bye now.